Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all very well indeed. And I know I've already said this to year 4, but to year 3 as well. Hope that you've had a fantastic break, a great Christmas and New Year. So for today's phase assembly, we're going to be looking at managing money, and in particular, different ways that we can pay for things. So if some of you are very lucky, you got some great presents, I'm sure, over the over Christmas. And some of you may have been fortunate enough to be given some money as well. So we're going to be looking at different ways that you can manage and protect that money, and ways that you can spend it as well, the fun part of having money. So I'm just going to share my screen and move over to the presentation that I've made. So here we go. So hopefully you can all see that now. So how can I pay for things is the question that we're going to be looking at today. So our learning objectives, we're going to understand that there are many different ways that we can pay for things, many different payment methods. We're going to understand what the most appropriate way of paying in different situations is. So there's maybe one instance where you pay in one way, and another instance that you pay in a different way, and why we pay in different ways at different times. And also looking at use appropriately and understand some of the key language relating to credit and debit card use. So before we get stuck into all of that, I want you to have a little reflection by yourselves. What different ways could you pay for something that you wanted to buy? So imagine there's something that you really, really want to buy. I don't know, it could be a PlayStation 5 if you're really lucky. It could be a new toy. It could be some new stationery for school. What are the different ways that you could pay for that? So I might go for the obvious one, and I might say cash. You could pay with money. Pause the video and have a quick reflection. What other ways apart from money and cash could you pay for something that you wanted to buy? And then just resume the video when you're ready to go on. Okay, so hopefully you've had a quick think about that. So let's go through some of those different methods that you can use to pay for things. So the first one, which I did mention, I'm sure came to your head straight away, is cash. And the great thing about cash is that it can be used almost anywhere. Any shop that you go into, you can pay for. The only time that you can't use it, of course, is when you want to buy something online. If you wanted to get something from eBay or Amazon, of course, you wouldn't be able to transfer the cash over the actual laptop and stretch your hand through and pay someone like that. So where would we use this? Where would we use cash? So if you're paying for goods and services in a shop, nowadays with COVID, cash is becoming less popular because of course it can keep our germs on it. So more often we're moving towards a different sort of payment method that we're going to look at a little later. And who can use cash? So there's no age restriction on who can carry and spend cash. So most people will use it at some point, and it can be used at any age at all. You can't be turned down for paying with cash. And the features of it is that it pays for goods immediately and stops you from getting any debt. Now, what do I mean by debt? So debt is if you've spent more money than you actually have. So being in debt is certainly not a good situation to be in. So if, for instance, you've bought too much and you don't have enough in your account to pay for it, you are then in debt, and means that you have to find some way of paying it back. Another feature of cash, you can only spend it if you have it, which you could see as either a negative or a positive. It's easy to use, just have to count it up. However, it can be really easily lost or stolen. Coins certainly slip down the sides of sofas. Wallets can be sometimes pinched from pockets if you're unlucky. And also you can't use it for online shopping as well. So cash is the first way that we can pay for things. Secondly, checks. Now this is one that you may not have seen as often as money. So how is it used? So we use it to send money safely from one person or business. It's most commonly used for paying bills, which I'm sure you guys aren't involved in at the moment. If you're paying tradesmen, so maybe someone who's come in to fix your boiler or do some plumbing or fix your heating or something like that. Friends or school related expenses like school trips. but are very rarely used nowadays. I can't think of the last time I took out my checkbook. I could barely tell you where my checkbook is actually, because mainly it's done with internet transfers and stuff like that. Where can you use checks? Simply enough, anywhere that accepts them. Most banks and businesses will allow you to use them. However, a lot of shops won't. It's quite rare that you'd go into a shop and pay with a check. And it's less relevant for you because most banks will only let you have a checkbook if you are over 16 or even 18 years of age. I certainly didn't get my first one till I think I was a bit older than that even, when I started paying bills really. And then the main features of checks, you need to think about how much money is in your account. So if I write a check for £100 to Lilla, for example, and I don't have £100 in my account, then the check's going to what's called bounce, which means that the person will cash it in, Lilla will cash it in, but I don't have enough money to pay it, therefore it can't get taken out of my account. So you need to think how much money is in your account before you give someone a check. You need to write the name of the payee on the check. So if you look at the picture over there, you have to write the person's name that you're paying, so Lilla Bush, and then do your signature. And as I said, many shops no longer accept them, and you need to have a bank account because they're linked to your bank account. So they're not necessarily the most convenient ways, and also they do sometimes take several days to get to transfer the money from one place to another. So they are sort of becoming a bit old-fashioned now, but still are commonly used. Right, so we've had cash, we've had checks, now onto bank cards. So this gives you access to the money in your bank account. So when you get to a certain age, you might open your own bank account, and some banks offer bank accounts for people as young as 11 years old. So that's not too far away in your future. So you may have enough savings in your piggy bank that you may take that to the bank and they'll put it into a bank account for you. Now, there are two types of cards that you can have, two main types: debit cards and credit cards. So debit cards, you're only allowed to access the available money in your account. So what that means is, to use the £100 example again, if I have £100 in my account, I can take anything up to £100 from my account because I've got the right amount of money. However, if I wanted to take out £150 with a debit card and I only had 100 in my account, I wouldn't be able to do that because I simply don't have the money. So if at the cash machine or the ATM or the shop I try and pay for something that I don't have enough money for, it'll then come up and say insufficient funds, you're not able to purchase this thing. So that's a debit card. However, a credit card, you can spend more money than you necessarily have, but then you pay it back later. Now that seems perfect. You think, wow, I can buy everything I could possibly dream of with a credit card and I'll just pay it back at some point later on. Unfortunately, however, that's the reason people aren't driving around in Ferraris and Teslas all the time, because there are some negatives with credit cards as well as the positives. So the positives being, if you don't have the money now, you can still buy what you need. However, you then do need to pay it back later. And if you're not able to pay it back in a certain time, you have to pay what's called interest on top of that. So if I owe someone if I owe the bank £100 off my credit card and I can't afford it, they'll then say, okay, now you need to pay us back £105 within this date. And if I don't do that, £110 within this date. So that's how people, to use a word that I used earlier, can get into really bad credit card debt. So you have spending more money than they're actually able to pay back. So there are pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages for both those ones. So debit cards, you can only spend what you've got in your account, and credit cards, you can only spend, up to a certain limit, so quite a lot of money, but you've got to then pay it back later. And those can be 11 years old for debit cards generally, and 18 years old for credit cards, for obvious reasons. And then finally, we are on to online banking. So again, this is what I use to pay my bills and you can go on online banking to check your account, see how much money is left, which is really useful because if you're going to make a big transaction, you want to buy something, you need to know how much money is in there. Online banking can be used anywhere with internet, on your computer, tablet, or mobile. However, of course, if there's no signal, then it's not going to be very useful. And who can use it? You have to be at least 16 years old to bank online. So again, this isn't relevant for you right now, but it's still really useful stuff to know and to get your head around. And that's why we're going to be looking at finance and money over the next few weeks in our assemblies, just so you are prepared for these kind of things and so you know what to do with your money when the time comes. And with online banking, the main features of it, you can check your bank balance and see a record of how much you've spent. So on my online banking, for instance, I'm with the bank HSBC. I can go on there and it'll have a list of all my transactions. So all of the payments that I have made. So it might say, oh, you have on the 2nd of January, you spent £5.68 at Gale's Bakery, for example. And then it'll have a whole list of things that you can see and what you've spent. You can also transfer money between accounts. So if there's a friend that you owe money to, you can send your money from your account via online banking to your friend's account. You can set up bill payments as well that go out of your bank every month. And also they have mobile apps as well for banking on the move, which can be really, really useful as well. So, quick recap. Again, good chance to pause the video. Can you remember the 4 ways of paying that we've looked at? Technically 5 ways really, because we looked at sort of 2 in 1. So pause the video. Can you name, maybe out loud or to the person next to you or anyone that's in the room, what are the 4/5 ways of paying that we have looked at? Okay, so hopefully you've remembered those. So we've got cash was first of all. Then we had check, so writing a checkbook in your checkbook. And then third, we had cards. So this is why it was sort of 4 to 5, because you have debit cards and credit cards. Remember, debit cards, you can only spend what you have in your account. Credit cards, you spend and then you pay it back later. And then finally, we had online banking as well, where you can transfer money between different places and check your account. So that is pretty much it. Please feel free to re-watch this if there are any sections that you weren't sure of or any bits that you wanted to go over. And the question that I'm going to leave you with that I'd like you to think about over the coming week is, which method of paying would you most like to use and why? So think about what things you're most likely to buy, which would be most useful to you and why. And then I may be calling on people at different points during our morning and afternoon briefings to answer that question. Okay, I will stop sharing my screen now. I hope that was, sorry guys. I hope that was insightful and that you managed to learn a little bit about money and different ways of paying. And I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.